Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks for joining me here. Josh of Severe Weather. I am a degreed meteorologist of over 20 years living in Raleigh, North Carolina, right in the Atlantic hurricane zone. And while things are relatively quiet in the Atlantic, I don't think they're going to stay that way too much longer as we continue to monitor an area that models are picking up on as our next tropical system in the central and eastern Atlantic. The next name on the list, Gabrielle. We're going to talk about where that may go and who needs to be watching today. And we're also going to talk about two hurricanes in the Eastern Pacific, both of which could have some effects on the United States, at least indirectly, and a new tropical depression as well affecting Japan over the next couple of days. So thank you for joining me here. Going straight to Zoom Earth this afternoon. Here's our area in the Atlantic, still well out to sea here, at least another week from any impact directly on any land at this point. But we do have two impacts to potentially watch as well. One is Hurricane Lorena, expected to hit as a stronger tropical storm, the Baja California Peninsula, and then heading across and moving all the way into the southwestern United States here this weekend. And then Hurricane Kiko, which is strengthening fairly rapidly, probably stronger than what this is showing. And then a new tropical depression as well. I believe that is Paipa, and that is getting ready to affect southwestern Japan. First things first, the Atlantic Basin, one area to watch here. It hasn't formed yet, so we don't have an invest, but we do have an area that is in a place where things are expected to start to come together for development. And it's not going to be a quick bloomer like we saw with Hurricane Aaron. This one could take at least a week before it really gets going, depending on several environmental factors, but models are not as aggressive as maybe they were a few days ago on how quickly this will strengthen. And the reason why is we're still in a state of flux across the Atlantic Basin. But as it stands today, there's a 40% chance this becomes our next tropical depression between now and Friday evening, and an 80% chance over the next 7 days. It's pretty likely, though, it would happen here towards the end of the week or over the weekend. Here's a look at the Atlantic Basin, and it's tough to pinpoint that system because it's embedded within this monsoonal trough here, which stretches from the Windward Islands to the African coastline. That area we're watching is just west of 30 West. Here's the Cabo Verde. So it's not moving as quickly as Aaron was. And you'll see the rest of the Atlantic Basin remains fairly quiet. It's not totally dry. We've got a lot of rain along this boundary here. But at the time being here, things are not going to be conducive for tropical development. Most of our action is going to stay in the central and eastern Pacific. Here's a look at that front. And you'll see some heavy rains steering in the direction of Bermuda here over the next day or so. That front, unlikely to form anything tropical with it, but we are going to have tropical rains and downpours here, in particular across South Florida and the Keys, but also parts of the Bahamas and Cuba as well. Right now, the upper level pattern doesn't favor tropical development, but we'll always watch it here. Models indicate maybe something very weak could try to spin up here, but you can see there's quite a bit of wind shear in place and kind of an unfavorable pattern here. And part of that's because we actually have an upper level low here, and we have southeasterlies in this direction. Then we've got a front with westerlies here. So those opposing winds are not going to favor tropical development. But the fact that we do have this front stalled here does mean we're going to get some much needed rainfall in portions of southeast Florida. Not just much needed, but maybe a little bit too much of a good thing at this time. We're not strangers to heavy rain in South Florida, but this is certainly going to ruin the next couple of days for you, unfortunately, if you have vacation plans. But it is better than a hurricane, so I guess be careful what you wish for at this point. The Caribbean's got a big ridge of high pressure aloft above it, and we have northerly flow producing storms over Cuba and Hispaniola and Jamaica, especially the western part of Jamaica. But at this point, nothing likely to spin up again as we keep our stretch going without a named system in the Caribbean dating all the way back to last October. Here's a look at the deep tropics, and you're going to see we've got a TUT. This is a tropical upper tropospheric trough up in here. That is lifting out and actually to the west in this direction. We've got a large area of subtropical high pressure here, which is keeping things stable. There's sinking air under that. We don't have a really good upper level anticyclonic pattern at this time, so there's some wind shear. But the trade winds are starting to weaken. We're not seeing strong westerlies like we were a week ago. So at this time, because we're starting to see a little bit more in the way of some westerlies south of this, and we have easterlies above it. There is expected to be some tropical development over time here with this change in wind direction from the north to the south side here. But nothing is consolidating quickly at this time. So again, we've got a lot of time to watch it. Behind this wave, there's another wave set to leave the coast here towards the weekend. That one has some prospects of developing as well. That is moving from Burkina Faso into southwestern Mali, and that should leave the coast Friday night or Saturday. And that's probably going to be our next yellow lemon area to watch here, I would think, on Saturday or Sunday. But it's way far out there. And one thing to note is that these waves are not moving quite as quickly as they were back in August. So these systems have a little bit more time to either develop or to get killed by wind shear at this point. Gabrielle and Humberto are the next two names on the list. You'll see the probabilities here are climbing over the next few days for development here. And then this is over Saturday into Sunday. Here's our next feature leaving the Mexican or African coastline here. And that one has possibilities of developing, believe it or not, even though the European starts to squander it. But one thing to keep in mind here as we look at the Caribbean is that the odds increase for a potential tropical system as soon as Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday night. So about 6 days from now, we could have something bearing down on the northern Leeward Islands and Virgin Islands. And if it moves into Puerto Rico, it's going to be Wednesday into Thursday, maybe even into Friday. A lot of uncertainty exists over the latter portion of this forecast period that goes through next week and beyond. Even though ensembles are indicating there's going to be storms out there, we just can't say for sure how that all is going to play out. Over the next 10 days, though, I don't think we're going to see anything in the Gulf, despite this little blob trying to show up here. We could see low pressure east of Florida forming Friday or Saturday, but I doubt it's going to stick around. And this is just a monsoon trough here that produces tropical depression type winds. Just a lot of rain like we typically would see in Panama, Colombia, Costa Rica, and maybe Nicaragua as well here. Probably not tropical development at this point. If we look at the upper level pattern, we want to try to figure out where things are going to go. And you'll see the big subtropical high is in place here. Now with Hurricane Aaron, this actually moved east, and we had another high that built into the Gulf, and we had a big trough moving through the eastern portion of the United States. Now we've got that again here early next week, but the challenge here is that our storm system is probably not yet being affected by this trough, which is all the way up here. Another thing to keep in mind is that we do have a tropical system hitting the southwest, and that is going to produce a trough somewhere in the vicinity of the southeast here by the middle of next week. That is going to be a different setup than what we saw with Hurricane Aaron. With Hurricane Aaron, we had a strong trough that pulled that system away. Now we've got a weaker trough and maybe a piece that gets left behind in the southeast. And that can create a slower evolving pattern here and a storm that may struggle to escape it and maybe even get drawn into where that trough is. So something we're going to have to watch here, but something that the models are starting to hint that may be more of a player down the road here towards next weekend. So we're going to watch that. The GFS does show a hurricane now affecting the southeast. In fact, going right into South Carolina. It's not the likeliest scenario. That's just what it's showing right now. It'll probably change again. But the reason it does that is because it takes this upper level trough and it kind of cuts it away from the main trough and splits that piece of energy here. We've got a strong ridge that builds into the Hudson Bay area and a moderately strong ridge east of Bermuda. And so the system isn't going to be able to just very quickly get carried away to the northeast because it misses this big trough. And in fact, it gets drawn to this trough over the southeast here starting next weekend. So it'll change again. But the one thing I will show you is that the GFS has been trending in this direction. You can see the run before it showed the system not getting nearly as far south and west, starting to get picked up by this trough here. The run before that, quite a bit different here. In fact, curving east of Bermuda and kind of getting stuck around, unfortunately, for a while here. And that would be really bad as well, but maybe not as bad as a direct hit on the East Coast. Google DeepMind here, we'll look at the European ensemble. That is actually farther south than the GFS, indicating maybe a threat to the islands here next Tuesday and Wednesday. You can see here over the next 15 days, the European ensemble tracks have shifted. If we go back a day, you're going to see a lot of them were nearer to the east of Bermuda. Then we go to the overnight. There was a shift to the right, very little to worry about on the East Coast. And then we go to the 12Z, and you can see that we have several ensemble members now aimed in this direction. So again, I'm not here to freak everybody out because this is so far away, but it's something that we definitely have to watch over the coming week or so. Here's a look at some of the Google DeepMind models. And you can see here more of them than not affecting the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and west of Bermuda versus to the east. This is our next system, by the way. This would be Humberto. So what could be Gabrielle is either going in this direction here, maybe weakening, maybe not, or getting pulled up in this direction. And if you're on the East Coast, there are some members here that we do need to be watching. This, by the way, would be Humberto. And at this point, it's too early to say. We got to wait and see what happens with Gabrielle. But you can see some models are showing it developing faster because the amount of rising air is going to be picking up from where it is right now. Conditions could be more favorable. A system like that is likely going to stay well to the east of any kind of major landmass. Here is the European ensemble, and you can see that shift to the south and west here. The Bahamas are in play, Bermuda's in play, and the East Coast is in play, unfortunately. With Humberto, again, we don't know because that would be 15 days out or more. And then here's the GFS ensemble, and you can see that for the most part, the GFS is not ready to threaten those of us in the southeast, but that one operational model was in fact doing that. So again, we don't want to rule out that opportunity at this time. Here's a look at the European, though. You can see it's got the system staying a little bit weaker for longer and then getting close to the islands here. And this was yesterday's European. Now, if you go to today's European, you're going to see that the system is coming in farther south and actually hitting somewhere near Dominica or Guadalupe as a tropical storm, Guadalupe as a tropical storm sometime on Wednesday or Wednesday night, and then heading up towards Puerto Rico and then getting killed by wind shear and then trying to make a comeback over the Bahamas. So I will show the long range models because there's a reason. We got to take a look at where things are going to go, but I never want to invest in what I'm seeing 10 to 15 days out, especially for a system that has yet to form. So what we're doing is we're watching trends at this point. We're not looking at actual solutions. Here's a European, which you can see takes the system as a stronger tropical storm through the middle of the islands, then through Puerto Rico, and then weakening substantially north of Hispaniola towards the Bahamas, maybe trying to revamp itself nearer to the east of North Carolina around the 17th or 18th. So more than 2 weeks away. The GFS is unfortunately showing violence at this point, kind of a Hugo-like track once it gets well to the north of Puerto Rico and then making a bend back. But I will show you this. GFS yesterday had it going through Bermuda. The run after it actually went east of Bermuda, and the run after that went south and west of Bermuda. So you can see there's just very little consistency from run to run. The one thing I want to point out to you, though, is that the trend has been south and west with all of these models. So this could continue to shift more. It could put Florida in its eyes. It could put the New England area back in its eyes. It could go into the Bahamas. Again, we don't quite know yet. We just have to keep an eye on it. Here's a Canadian. It stays north of the islands. UK Met also stays to the north and east of the islands. Those are trending towards the GFS and not the European at this point. So right now, the European's a bit of an outlier, but we'll have to see. And we're going to know more here once we get an invest and models start to run and we get more ensemble guidance to actually pick out a low pressure area. Until that low pressure area forms, what we're looking at this point, some could consider still kind of fantasy. So we'll talk about the Pacific now. We do have two bona fide hurricanes, Kiko and Lorena. This is Kiko over here. And I would be shocked if it weren't already a major hurricane. Category 2 as of the earlier update. Category 1, Lorenzo or Lorena, not Lorenzo, Lorena, and that is going to be making landfall here as a tropical storm and then bringing moisture across Mexico. And that primarily is going to be a flood threat. We do need to watch Kiko, though, which could be an issue for Hawaii down the road. Here's Lorena, Category 1 hurricane. You'll see pretty nice central dense overcast. That system has developed very nicely today. It could strengthen a little more, but eventually it's going to hit some wind shear and colder waters and weaken before landfall. Hurricane hunters found Category 1 pressures and winds mainly on the eastern side of the system as it parallels the coast. And you can see that here, 75 knot flight level winds, Category 1 storm. But eventually that is going to start making a turn to the north here overnight into tomorrow morning, and then more of a turn to the north-northeast. And eventually its remains going to Arizona, New Mexico, and eventually Texas after that. We do have a tropical storm warning encompassing 200 miles of the coast, tropical storm watches all the way down to Cabo San Lucas, which I don't think we'll get a direct hit on this. I don't even know why there's a watch there, but we'll keep an eye on that. We may see watches issued here for the other side of the peninsula and for the Gulf of California area and mainland northwestern Mexico. But the system is expected to get shredded up some as it moves across the Baja, and eventually will be a remnant low by the time we get into the weekend. Here's a look at the GFS and where it shows the winds. There is a possibility of some tropical storm force winds inland, maybe even getting close to the Arizona border, believe it or not, just because there's not a lot of room between the Gulf and Arizona, maybe a couple of 100 miles. So we'll have to watch that. But generally speaking, that system will be steadily declining in intensity. It will not be declining in rainfall, though. We are going to see several inches of rain through the Baja, the southern 2/3 especially. Mountainous areas here could see up to a foot. That could cause catastrophic flooding. We could even see 4 or 5 inches over parts of Arizona and maybe southwestern portions of New Mexico. And because of that, there is an increased flood threat here, at least a slight risk of flooding, including Phoenix, Tempe, Tucson, maybe Yuma, Imperial, all the way up to maybe Havasu here. So that's primarily going to be Thursday night into Friday morning. So something we need to be preparing for at this point. I'll come back to the southeast, but you can see the heavy amounts of rain over the southwest over the coming days. It's not going to stop there. That moisture gets pulled right across the Red River where we get wet once again. DFW area, Wichita Falls, Lubbock. We've got more rain coming. The areas that need more rain to the north aren't getting it, unfortunately. Louisiana is not going to see a lot of rain out of this, except along the border with Arkansas. And some of that moisture will find its way through the Tennessee Valley and finally up into the Ohio Valley as well, linking up with a front. So those of you in West Virginia, Ohio, Western PA, and New York may see your first really good rainfall going all the way back to July. We need that for sure. The Carolinas could see some rain. The coast certainly is going to be turning wetter over time, but most of our rain here is going to be across Florida, coastal Georgia, coastal South Carolina, and in between the Piedmont areas. Unfortunately, I don't have a great risk of rain coming until we get maybe into tropical activity here over time. But again, that's a big maybe. Here's a look at Kiko, Category 2 hurricane. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 3 at this point. We don't have aircraft to measure it, but you can see it's steadily intensifying. It's a small storm, but it's got a well-defined eye, and it may have its eye on Hawaii here over time. Hawaii is on the map here, but it's not in the next 7-day cone, or at least 5-day cone, 7 to 8 days away potentially. Expected to be a Category 4 hurricane now, 130-mile-per-hour winds, and then gradually weakening when we get to the weekend and beyond, back down to Category 2 or even Category 1. Track guidance right now is tightly clustered, but then spreads out when we get past Monday or Tuesday of next week. And we have some models going south of Hawaii, some going well to the north, and we have several going over the island chain. So we need to watch it very closely in Hawaii. European ensembles are mainly just south of the island. We'd rather them be to the north, to be honest. GFS right over or just to the north. So that may be a slightly better scenario, depending on how this ends up. And you can see from the GFS operational, the strongest winds are expected right now to remain just to the north and east of the islands. But this model has shifted. You could see earlier in the day, we went right into the big island and over the islands. And then the 6Z run shifted north, and the 12Z run has shifted a little bit farther to the north. So let's hope that trend continues. But right now, we're going to be watching it like a hawk, as there could be impacts by the middle of next week. Here's the intensity forecast from Kiko, expected to strengthen to Category 4 tonight or tomorrow morning, and then gradually start to come back down, probably down below major hurricane strength by the time we get to Saturday night and Sunday. But still could be a powerful system right on into the end of the weekend and beginning of next week. After that, it will get into cooler waters and should weaken over time. Finally, we do have a new tropical depression in the Western Pacific. It's been very quiet there after a burst over Southeast Asia last week. Typically, typhoon season is much more alive than this. So these folks are going to get a storm, but it's not going to be a really bad one. Paipa expected to curve up the coast here overnight and through the day on Thursday, and then leave Tokyo locally on Thursday night and back out to sea by Friday morning. All right, that's all I have for everybody, but I appreciate your time today. I do want to leave you with a quick Christian word of God. This is from the Romans 8:28, Paul's letter to the Church of Rome, one of my favorite verses. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. The point I want to make is that God loves everyone, whether or not you choose to believe that. But there is good in everything. I've lived through hurricanes. I've lived through disasters, all kinds of things. And no one wants anything like that to happen. But I've seen the good in it too. I've seen people come back together as they rebuild, people getting closer together, helping one another. That wouldn't have happened without the hurricane, in my opinion. Um, we've all been called to do something. God gives us all a special gift, many gifts in some cases. This happens to be mine. But I just want you to stay encouraged, because one day you have the opportunity to have all the challenges go away and you can live with Jesus in heaven eternally, if you make the choice to follow Jesus, of course. I really want to believe, you hope that you have eternity waiting for you. But in my personal belief, the only way you can get there is through Jesus Christ. He is the only way to heaven. It's not a gatekeeper. He welcomes you with open arms. And there is good waiting for you despite what challenges you face today. And I will say this, since I became a Christian, I didn't find life to be any easier. In fact, it's been the opposite. Now I really have to work harder and harder on strengthening my relationship with God and strengthening my relationship with Jesus and showing others that gateway as well. I can't just walk through life and not try to make another impact on somebody else. That's the direction I was going before, believe it or not. But I've come to know God and come to know that He's got big things for people like me and people like you as well. If you're struggling in your faith, that's perfectly fine. I think we all worry and struggle a lot more than we need to. But just know that I'm on your side and God is on your side, more importantly. If you would like for me to pray for you, I will spend some time doing that. I don't care if we've never met before. You matter to me, and I truly believe you are here for a reason, that God brought you to this channel. And for those of you that are returning, I really appreciate y'all. Please get the word out to your friends. And I do ask you one quick favor, and that is, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and come back for more. I plan to encourage folks on a daily basis, or as much as I personally can. And I plan to continue helping you all out with hurricane forecasting and weather forecasting. And my aim is to help you all plan and be prepared for what may be coming. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great evening. God bless.